Get out and stay where I can see you so you don't cause any more trouble. You look like a fraud and don't belong here, so I won't serve you." The bank manager shouted, pointing at the black schoolgirl in the bank. Soon, the security guard's grip tightened around 14-year-old Imani Montgomery's arm as he marched her across the marble floor of Hancock Trust Bank. Every eye in the busy branch turned to watch the spectacle. A young black girl in a private school uniform being forcefully escorted away from the teller counter. "Stand right here. Don't move," the guard ordered, positioning Imani in a corner far from the exit, visible to everyone yet isolated. The humiliation burned on her face as wealthy customers whispered and stared. Miss Victoria Hargrove, the bank's manager, stood with arms crossed and a satisfied smirk spreading across her face. Panic rose in Imani's chest. All she came to do was deposit her scholarship funds, and now she's been humiliated. She frantically searched through her backpack. Her scholarship check, ID, and all her documents had been confiscated, and now she realized something else was missing. Her heart sank. "My phone? I left it at school during study hall," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, I just need to call my father. I don't have a phone here. He's expecting me home soon." Miss Hargrove walked past, her designer heels clicking sharply against the floor. "That's not our problem," she said without even looking at Imani. "You'll wait there until we're done verifying your documents, if they're even real." Miss Hargrove Victoria said firmly, "If you stand against injustice and believe everyone should be treated fairly, then type justice in the comment section if you're homosexual. And if you want to see how this shocking confrontation ends, and the moment this racist manager realizes who she's been mistreating, hit that subscribe button right now. This story gives the best instant karma you have ever seen. You don't want to miss what happens next." Just that morning, 14-year-old Imani Montgomery had sat at her family's breakfast table, excitement radiating from her as she carefully placed her $5,000 academic scholarship check into her folder. She won this scholarship as a result of her academic achievements in school and needed to deposit the check at the bank. "Are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" Dr. Josiah Montgomery had asked, looking up from the financial section of his newspaper, ironically, featuring a small article about his recent acquisition of Hancock Financial Group. "I'm 14 now, Dad. I need to learn to do these things myself," Imani replied with quiet determination. Her father's proud smile said everything. No one would have guessed that the Montgomery family lived in one of Oak Ridge's most prestigious neighborhoods. Their home was elegant but understated, a reflection of Dr. Montgomery's philosophy that true wealth comes from investing in people, not possessions. As one of the nation's most respected financial experts, he had built his empire from nothing, focused on community development and economic justice. Imani was her father's daughter in every way that mattered. Despite attending Westridge Academy, where tuition cost more than most families' mortgages, she wore the simplest version of the required uniform. No designer accessories or flashy additions, just the standard blazer, skirt, and loafers. The only personal touch was the small leather-bound notebook she carried everywhere, jotting down observations and ideas in her neat handwriting. She was exceptional not just in academics, where she'd earned a full merit scholarship despite her family's wealth, but in her quiet perceptiveness. Imani chose the Hancock Trust Bank in suburban Oak Ridge for her first independent banking experience. It was the flagship branch of her father's recent acquisition, though the employees didn't yet know about the ownership change. Its marble floors and rich mahogany paneling screamed old money and exclusivity. Every promotional poster featured smiling white families, and the customer service area was visibly divided between priority banking and standard service sections. The branch manager, Victoria Hargrove, had built her career on catering to a certain clientele. That morning, she'd been overheard telling a new employee, "We have standards to maintain in this branch. We need to be selective about who feels comfortable here." As Imani entered the bank and joined the line that morning, her heart fluttered with nervous excitement. She practiced her deposit slip speech under her breath. "I'd like to deposit this check into my account, please." So simple, so ordinary, the kind of transaction that happened hundreds of times each day in this bank. When it was finally her turn, Imani approached the teller's window with her carefully organized documents, ID, scholarship letter, and the check itself. She had no idea that this simple transaction would turn into the most humiliating and revealing moment of her young life. If Imani had used her father's name, everything would have been different, but she decided not to. As Imani slid her scholarship check across the counter, the teller, Ms. Donovan's expression shifted from professional courtesy to immediate suspicion. Her eyes widened at the amount, $5,000. Then narrowed as she looked from the check to the 14-year-old black girl standing before her in a school uniform. "This is quite a large check for someone your age," Ms. Donovan said, her voice rising just enough for nearby customers to hear. "Where did you get this?" "It's my academic scholarship," Imani explained calmly despite the heat rising to her cheeks. "I can show you the award letter." Ms. Donovan held the check up to the light, rotating it as if expecting to find evidence of forgery. She examined every corner, every signature, making a show of her suspicion. Without another word, she pressed a button at her station. Minutes later, Victoria Hargrove, the branch manager, appeared behind the teller. She took the check without even acknowledging Imani's presence, speaking instead to the teller as if Imani were invisible. "Another one of these?" Victoria sighed, shaking her head. "We've had issues with fraudulent checks from people like you lately." The emphasis she placed on those last three words made their meaning crystal clear. "It's my academic scholarship," Imani repeated, pulling out her award letter. "I have the documentation right here." Victoria snatched the letter from Imani's hand. "I'll be the judge of what this is." Her eyes scanned the prestigious letterhead and a flash of something, disbelief mixed with resentment, crossed her face. "I'll need to see some identification," Victoria demanded. Imani handed over her school ID and bank card. Instead of returning them, Victoria collected everything into a folder. "We'll need to hold all of these for verification." The teller's window was tall, but Victoria leaned over it, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "And how exactly did someone like you come by this scholarship? Did you actually earn it, or you forged it?" Despite the blatant racism, Imani maintained her composure. "I maintain a perfect grade and scored in the 99th percentile on the National Academic Assessment. The scholarship is merit-based." Victoria's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Well, I'm sure there are all sorts of special programs for poor students these days. Lowered standards, quotas to fill." By now, other customers were watching. Some looked uncomfortable, but nobody intervened. "You think you can just walk in here like you own the place?" Victoria continued, her voice growing louder with confidence. "Coming in with checks that don't match your appearance. I just want to deposit my check like anyone else," Imani said, her voice still steady despite her racing heart. Victoria's expression hardened. "Listen to me carefully. I run this branch, and I decide who gets service here." She tapped her manicured fingernail on the counter for emphasis. "And something doesn't feel right about you." The surrounding customers pretended not to listen, but the bank had grown notably quieter. "This check and documents don't even look real." "How will I believe you?" Victoria leaned closer. "This kind of money has a way of disappearing in a certain race." Her implication was clear, that blacks couldn't be trusted with money. Imani replied her, "Ma'am, I'm not here for any trouble, just to deposit my scholarship funds, but you look like you're a terrible person." Then came the threat from Victoria, delivered with a cruel smirk. Okay, I'm going to make this very difficult for you. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you never walked in here. I'll make sure you wait all day if I have to. No one's going to help you." Imani stood her ground. "I'd like my documents back, please. If you won't deposit my check, I'll go to another bank." Victoria's eyes flashed with anger at this defiance. She turned to security. "Mr. Tate, please escort this girl away from the counter. She's causing a disturbance." The security guard was a large man who moved with practiced intimidation. His hand immediately went to the baton at his side. "Let's go. Now." "But I just need to deposit my check," Imani protested, her voice finally breaking slightly. "You have all my ID and documents. I can't leave without them." Victoria's smile was chilling. "Oh, that's right. We have everything, don't we? So you'll just have to wait until we're done. Could be hours. Could be longer." The security guard gripped Imani's arm firmly, marching her across the bank floor to a corner near the entrance. "Stand there and don't move until we say so," he ordered. Victoria called after them, "And don't even think about leaving without our permission. That would be suspicious behavior." For hours, Imani stood in that corner while life in the bank continued around her. The wall clock became her tormentor, each minute stretching painfully as customers came and went. White customers were not only served promptly, but were treated with exaggerated courtesy. Victoria personally escorted several wealthy-looking clients to her office, returning with coffee or water for them. Not once did she glance in Imani's direction, except when issuing new instructions to the guard to keep watching her. As the second hour passed, panic began to set in. Imani desperately searched through her backpack, growing increasingly frantic. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had left her phone in her locker during morning study hall. She found her assignment calendar, seeing her father's note about an important afternoon meeting. He would be expecting her home soon. With no way to contact him, her anxiety mounted. "Excuse me," she called softly to the guard. "Could I please use the phone? My father is expecting me." "You have all my documents." The guard didn't even turn his head. "Stay put and be quiet. We'll get to you when we get to you, if ever we do." After another hour, Imani tried again, her voice strained. "Please, I've been standing here for hours. You have my ID, my check, everything." Victoria approached her directly this time. "That's the point. You can't leave without them, can you? So you'll stand there as long as I want." She turned to the guard with a final instruction. "Don't let her use any phones. Make her life difficult." Through it all, one employee seemed increasingly troubled by what was unfolding. Melody Pham, the young Asian American teller, kept glancing at the clock, then at Imani, then at Victoria. Twice she approached Victoria, appearing to say something about the situation, only to be sharply dismissed. By hour 3, Melody was openly making eye contact with Imani, her expression a mix of sympathy and helplessness. When Victoria was occupied with a wealthy client, Melody's gaze lingered longer. Have you ever been mistreated and felt powerless? What would you have done in Imani's position? Share your thoughts in the comments below and hit the subscribe and like button now to see the moment when secrets were revealed and justice finally arrives in this bank. 3 hours of forced standing had left Imani's legs aching, but her mind remained sharp, observing everything around her. It was just past 1:30 p.m. when she noticed Victoria Hargrove's demeanor suddenly change. The bank manager who had been so deliberately cruel now seemed distracted, almost nervous. Victoria checked her gold watch for the third time in 5 minutes, a Rolex that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments. The timepiece flashed as she twisted her wrist, her eyes narrowing at whatever deadline approached. Her previously confident posture had given way to a subtle agitation. What followed was almost comical, Victoria's sudden preoccupation with her appearance. She ducked into the nearest restroom, emerging minutes later with refreshed makeup and not a hair out of place. She straightened her designer blazer, adjusted her pearl necklace, and smoothed invisible wrinkles from her skirt. This wasn't normal midday maintenance. Victoria was preparing for someone important. At precisely 1:45 p.m., the receptionist's desk phone rang. After a brief exchange, she gave Victoria a subtle nod. The manager's entire body tensed, then relaxed into a practiced smile as she walked briskly toward her private office at the far end of the branch. Before entering, Victoria performed a final surveillance of the bank floor. A quick but thorough scan that missed one crucial detail: Imani's attentive gaze tracking her every move. In her haste, Victoria failed to completely close her office door. A 3-inch gap remained, narrow enough to seem closed to casual observers, but wide enough for a determined eye to see through. Determined to find out what was going on, Imani sneaked a bit near the private office. For several minutes, nothing happened. Imani remained motionless in her corner, wondering what had triggered the manager's sudden change in behavior. From her point, Imani could see directly through the gap in the doorway. What she witnessed made her breath catch in her throat. Victoria had secretly let a man into the bank while others were busy with customers. A man Imani felt she had seen before sat across from her desk. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that screamed custom tailoring. "Are you sure no one saw me come in?" the man asked, glancing toward the not-quite-closed door. He rose briefly to check that the office blinds were fully drawn. "The side entrance worked as planned?" "Yes, Mr. Wells. Everything is arranged exactly as we discussed," Victoria replied. "No one knows you're here." Harrison Wells. The name registered immediately in Imani's mind. She had heard her father mention this name before, though never in positive terms. Wells was CEO of Meridian Banking Group, one of Hancock's main competitors who hated her father and always wanted the bank down. Victoria reached into her desk drawer and withdrew a thick manila folder. Even from a distance, Imani could clearly see the bold red stamp across its cover. Confidential Montgomery document. Her family name on that folder sent a jolt of adrenaline through Imani's body. Victoria slid the folder across the desk with the reverence of someone delivering sacred texts. "This has everything you asked for: client lists, asset valuations, detailed accounts of high-net-worth customers, lending portfolios." Her voice trembled slightly with excitement. "Even proprietary investment strategies they're planning to implement post-acquisition." Harrison opened the folder, his eyes widening with satisfaction as he scanned the contents. His fingers traced the lines of what appeared to be financial spreadsheets. "Excellent work, Victoria. Truly excellent." The praise seemed to make Victoria practically glow with pride. "This is exactly what I needed." He flipped through several more pages before continuing. "Excellent. You will be handsomely paid for this. This period is the perfect time to move. With the bank's attention focused on the acquisition, they'll never see us coming. Hancock Bank will be out of business soon." Victoria nodded eagerly. "I've already flagged the high-value clients who might be receptive to moving their accounts." "All here." Victoria tapped a section of documents. "Complete implementation schedule, regulatory approvals, staffing changes, everything. He has no idea what's coming," Victoria said. The casual way they discussed betraying her father's business made Imani's stomach churn. She pressed her hand against her mouth to prevent any sound from escaping, her eyes wide with shock. Without thinking, she reached for her notebook, the small leather-bound journal where she recorded her observations. With trembling fingers, she began documenting what she was witnessing. Imani's pen moved rapidly across the page of her notebook, capturing every damning word. Her mind raced with implications. This wasn't just about her terrible treatment anymore. Victoria Hargrove was actively engaged in corporate betrayal against her father's company, while simultaneously implementing discriminatory banking practices. The two threads were intertwined. Victoria was selecting which clients to poach, preparing to move them to Meridian Banking under Harrison Wells. The irony was almost too much to process. Here she stood, humiliated and held against her will by a woman who was actively betraying her father's company, a company Victoria didn't even realize Imani was connected to. By the time Harrison Wells prepared to leave through the side exit, Imani had filled 3 pages with evidence that would shake Hancock Trust Bank to its foundations. What she didn't realize was that her careful note-taking had caught the attention of someone else. Melody Pham, the uncomfortable teller, had been watching Imani's focused writing with growing curiosity. And as Victoria escorted Harrison out through the back door, Melody made a decision that would change everything. After Harrison Wells departed through the side exit, Victoria returned to the bank floor with renewed confidence. The secret meeting seemed to have energized her, as if the act of betrayal had somehow validated her position of power. Imani, still processing what she had witnessed, quickly returned to her designated corner before the security guard noticed her movement. The afternoon rush had begun, bringing a steady stream of customers through the bank's heavy glass doors. Imani watched as a middle-aged white couple approached the teller counter, where they presented what appeared to be a modest check for deposit. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," Victoria's voice carried across the bank floor, dripping with a warmth she had never once directed toward Imani. "What a pleasure to see you again. Please let me take you to our VIP room." The couple hadn't deposited anything extraordinary. Their transaction slip, visible from Imani's position, showed perhaps a few $1,000s. Yet Victoria personally escorted them past the teller counter, through a frosted glass door marked Priority Clients, and into a private lounge area. Through the briefly opened door, Imani glimpsed comfortable leather chairs, a coffee service, and most surprisingly, a champagne bucket with flutes arranged on a silver tray. When Victoria emerged minutes later, she was already scanning the bank for her next preferred customer. Her gaze slid past an elderly black man who had been patiently waiting at her desk, his folder of papers neatly arranged before him. Instead, she focused on a young white woman who had just completed her transaction. "Miss Whitaker, please allow me to walk you out and carry those for you," Victoria offered, taking the woman's single deposit envelope and small purse as if they were heavy burdens. She guided the woman toward the door with one hand lightly touching her elbow, the picture of solicitous attention. As they passed the elderly man, Victoria didn't even acknowledge his presence. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at his watch and sighing quietly. This was clearly not his first time being overlooked. The pattern continued. A white teenager, no older than 16, approached the new accounts desk with interest in opening his first checking account. "Of course we can help you with that," Victoria assured him, materializing from wherever she had been watching. "No need to bring your parents in. We can get everything set up for you right away." Imani's gaze drifted to the policy poster prominently displayed on the wall directly behind Victoria. New accounts for minors require parent-guardian presence and signature. The hypocrisy was so blatant that Imani flipped to a new page in her notebook, writing "evidence" in large block letters at the top. The discriminatory clockwork ticked on. A Latino couple approached Victoria's desk with questions about a transaction. Without even checking their account, Victoria responded with practiced regret. "I'm afraid the system is running slow today. It might take several days for your transaction to process." Not 5 minutes later, an older white man in a golf shirt approached with a similar inquiry. Victoria's transformation was immediate. "Let me expedite this for you, Mr. Garrison. We don't want to waste your valuable time. I can process this right now as a priority transaction." The most jarring contrast came when a young white boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, broke free from his mother's grasp and began running circles around the lobby furniture, laughing loudly as his harried mother attempted to complete her banking. Rather than reprimand the child for the disruption, which was considerably more intrusive than anything Imani had done, Victoria approached with a warm smile. She crouched down to the boy's level, eyes twinkling with indulgence. "What an energetic young man you have," she complimented the mother. Then to the boy, "Would you like a lollipop? Special treat for our special customers." The scene struck Imani like a physical blow, as she recalled Victoria's harsh words to her just hours earlier. The final episode in Victoria's parade of discrimination unfolded when a well-dressed black family, father in business casual attire, mother in a modest but professional dress, approached Victoria's desk with a mortgage application in hand. "We'd like to discuss home loan options," the father began, his voice carrying the careful modulation of someone who had learned to navigate hostile spaces. "We've been pre-approved at another bank, but we'd prefer to work with a local institution." Victoria barely glanced at their paperwork. "You might find our downtown branch more suitable for your needs." Her emphasis carried clear subtext. "They specialize in diverse lending programs for people like you." The family exchanged a knowing look, the kind that spoke volumes about having encountered this treatment before. They collected their documents with quiet dignity and left the bank, confusion and embarrassment evident in their body language despite their efforts to mask it. Imani's pen moved rapidly across her notebook pages, documenting each incident with meticulous detail. She noted times, descriptions, exact quotes, and specific contrasts in treatment. The clock on the wall marked 3 hours and 17 minutes since Imani had first been forced to stand in the corner. Her legs ached dully, and the humiliation had settled into a cold, hard knot in her stomach. But something else had taken root alongside it. A quiet determination, fueled by everything she had witnessed and documented. Across the bank floor, Melody Pham had been checking the time with increasing frequency. At precisely 3:15 p.m., she removed her name badge and placed it in her drawer. Her scheduled break had arrived, and rather than heading toward the employee lounge as usual, she picked up a small stack of deposit slips and a cleaning cloth. Victoria was occupied with a wealthy client in her office, and the security guard had positioned himself near the entrance, scrolling through his phone. Melody moved with casual purpose, straightening brochures and wiping down countertops as she made her way across the floor. To anyone watching, she appeared to be simply tidying up during a slow period. When she reached the corner where Imani stood, Melody kept her back to the security cameras. She bent down to collect a fallen pen, then whispered without looking directly at Imani, "Are you okay? You've been here for hours." The unexpected kindness nearly broke Imani's composure. After hours of being treated as less than human, the simple acknowledgement of her situation sent a wave of emotion through her. "They took my documents," Imani whispered back, her voice barely audible. "I can't leave without them, and I need to call my father." Melody glanced over her shoulder, checking that Victoria was still occupied. With trembling fingers, she slipped her personal cell phone from her pocket, concealing it between the cleaning cloth and deposit slips. "I could lose my job for this," Melody murmured, pressing the phone into Imani's hand. "But this isn't right. What they're doing to you isn't right. I've watched it happen to others, but never this bad." Imani's eyes widened in disbelief at the unexpected lifeline. "Thank you so much," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't know what to do. I've been standing here for so long." "Be quick," Melody cautioned, her eyes darting toward Victoria's office. "Victoria checks the security cameras sometimes. I'll try to block their view of you, but you only have a few minutes." With that, Melody positioned herself strategically between Imani and the nearest camera, pretending to reorganize a nearby brochure display. The small act of rebellion carried significant risk. Bank employees were strictly forbidden from lending personal devices to customers, especially those under security supervision. With shaking hands, Imani dialed her father's number, shielding the phone with her body and notebook. The phone rang twice before Dr. Josiah Montgomery answered. "Hello?" Her father's deep, reassuring voice nearly broke her composure completely. "Dad?" Imani's whisper was thick with unshed tears. "It's me. I'm at the bank, and they won't let me deposit my check." "Imani, what's happening? You should have been home hours ago. They took my scholarship check and made me stand in a corner for hours." The words tumbled out in a rushed whisper. "They have my ID, my documents, everything. I can't leave without them. The manager has been horrible, saying awful things, and, which branch are you at?" Her father's voice had taken on the steel-edged calm that Imani recognized from rare moments when his anger was too deep for shouting. "The Oak Ridge branch on Maple Street," she replied. "But Dad, there's more. I saw the manager meeting with someone named Harrison Wells." The silence on the other end of the line was profound. "Did you say Harrison Wells?" her father finally asked, his voice unnaturally controlled. "Are you absolutely certain that was his name?" "Yes, they were in her office." She gave him a folder marked Confidential, Montgomery Acquisition. "They were talking about you and the bank acquisition." She's giving him client lists and timelines. "Dad, they're planning something against your company." Imani could hear her father's measured breathing on the other end of the line. The careful inhales and exhales he used to maintain his composure in critical situations. "Stay calm, Imani. I'm on my way, but don't let them know who I am just yet." His voice was measured but carried unmistakable authority. "This is much bigger than we thought. My assistant, Miss Larkin, will be there first. She's only 5 minutes away." Imani glanced nervously toward Victoria's office. "They've been treating people differently based on race. I've been writing everything down." "Of course you have," her father said, and despite the gravity of the situation, there was a note of pride in his voice. "That's my girl. Keep documenting everything. This kind of evidence is exactly what we need." "I'm scared, Dad," Imani admitted, her voice barely audible. "I know, sweetheart, but I'm proud of you for handling this with such maturity. You're stronger than you know." The sounds of movement came through the phone, car keys jangling, a door opening. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Miss Larkin will arrive much sooner. Just hold on a little longer." As the call ended, Melody appeared at Imani's side, gently retrieving her phone. "Everything okay?" "Help is coming," Imani whispered. "Thank you." Melody nodded once, then returned to her station, her posture noticeably tenser than before. The next 17 minutes passed with excruciating slowness. Imani returned to her careful documentation, adding details about Melody's act of kindness alongside the discrimination she had witnessed. At precisely 3:42 p.m., the bank's glass doors swung open with purpose. The woman who entered moved with the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. Miss Larkin was tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her natural hair styled in a short, professional cut. She carried a sleek leather portfolio and scanned the bank with calculation rather than confusion. Victoria emerged from her office immediately, her predatory instinct for wealthy potential clients overriding whatever task had occupied her. Her practiced smile appeared as she approached Miss Larkin. "Welcome to Hancock Trust Bank. I'm Victoria Hargrove, branch manager. How may I assist you today?" Miss Larkin didn't return the smile. "I'm here regarding an emergency situation requiring immediate attention." Her voice carried the crisp efficiency of someone who managed the affairs of powerful people. Before Victoria could respond, her cell phone began to ring. She glanced at it with annoyance, then surprise as she recognized the number. "Excuse me one moment," she said to Ms. Larkin, before answering. "This is Victoria Hargrove. Whatever was said on the other end of the line caused Victoria's expression to shift from confidence to confusion. "Yes, sir. I understand. No, I wasn't aware of any. Yes, all protocols were followed according to." Her voice trailed off as she listened, her free hand nervously adjusting her pearl necklace. She had barely ended that call when her phone began ringing again, a different number this time. Victoria's composure began to crack as she declined the call, only for it to immediately ring again. Within moments, her phone was buzzing continuously with calls and text messages. "I apologize for the interruption," Victoria said to Ms. Larkin, her voice slightly higher than before. "How can I help with this emergency situation?" Ms. Larkin's expression remained impassive. "I need to speak with Imani right away." Victoria's brow furrowed. "Who? Oh, the girl with the suspicious check?" She gestured dismissively toward Imani's corner. "We're still verifying her documentation. Standard procedure for potential fraud. The daughter of Dr. Josiah Montgomery." Larkin clarified, her tone making it clear this information should carry significant weight. Victoria's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. A slight widening of the eyes, a momentary freeze in her practiced smile. "Montgomery? I'm not sure I understand." The color began draining from Victoria's face as the pieces clicked into place. The scholarship check with the Montgomery name, the documents she had so casually confiscated, the young girl she had humiliated for hours, and the folder she had just handed to Harrison Wells. We've been following standard protocols for unusual transactions," Victoria stammered, her earlier confidence evaporating. There was no indication that she was affiliated with anyone of significance. "I didn't know who she was." Ms. Larkin's expression hardened. "So you treat all young customers this way unless they're affiliated with someone of significance?" The question hung in the air, damning in its implications. Without waiting for a response, Miss Larkin walked directly toward Imani. "Miss Montgomery," she said, her professional demeanor softening slightly. "I apologize for this inexcusable situation. Your father is on his way. He asked me to make sure you're all right." Imani nodded, relief washing over her face. "I'm okay, just tired of standing." "Where are Miss Montgomery's documents?" Miss Larkin asked, turning back to Victoria, who had followed behind, increasingly flustered. "I'm sorry." "There seems to have been a misunderstanding," Victoria began, her voice taking on a placating tone. "We take fraud prevention very seriously here, and certain procedures must be followed when—" "Her documents," Miss Larkin repeated, cutting off Victoria's explanation. Victoria hurried to her office, returning moments later with Imani's folder containing her ID, scholarship check, and award letter. She extended them toward Imani with a completely transformed demeanor. "If we had known she was related to someone important, we certainly would have expedited the verification process," Victoria attempted, her smile strained and artificial. Ms. Larkin's expression remained cold. "So your standard of service depends on family connections? Is that the official policy of Hancock Trust Bank?" Before Victoria could formulate a response, Ms. Larkin continued, "We'll need complete access to today's security recordings from all cameras in this branch." "I don't think that's necessary," Victoria began. "Nothing is to be deleted or altered. Is that clear?" Ms. Larkin's tone left no room for negotiation. "This is now a formal investigation matter, and any attempt to modify evidence will carry additional consequences." Victoria's phone continued its relentless buzzing as regional executives tried desperately to reach her. What no one in the bank yet realized was that this confrontation was merely the prelude. In 20 minutes, everything was going to change in the bank. Don't forget to subscribe now as we witness the moment of justice that's coming. The hands of the wall clock approached 5 p.m. in Doflaimber. That's when it happened. A sleek black Mercedes S-Class with darkened windows glided to a stop directly in front of the bank's main entrance. Not in the parking lot, but right at the curb. the kind of arrival that announced someone too important to walk the extra 20 feet. The uniformed driver emerged first, circling to open the rear passenger door with practiced precision. "Is that?" a young bank associate whispered, abandoning his closing duties to stare through the glass doors. Victoria, who had been mid-sentence explaining bank verification procedures to an increasingly unimpressed Ms. Larkin, fell silent as she followed the employee's gaze. The color that had only partially returned to her face drained completely away. Outside, more vehicles began arriving, a procession of luxury cars that circled like predators. From one emerged Talia Reeves, the regional director Victoria reported to, her expression grim and purposeful. From others, board members in tailored suits stepped out, their presence at a local branch unprecedented. Within moments, 7 executives stood outside the bank, all focused on the man emerging from the first car. Inside, Victoria's composure crumbled entirely. She rushed behind the teller counter, frantically checking her appearance in a small, compact mirror, while simultaneously trying to reach someone, anyone, on her phone. "What's going on?" she demanded of no one in particular, her voice higher than usual. "Why wasn't I informed of a meeting? This isn't on my calendar." She smoothed her hair, straightened her blazer, and tried desperately to appear in control as the bank doors opened one final time. Josiah Montgomery entered without haste. 6'2" with broad shoulders and the deliberate movements of someone who knew his own power, he filled the space not with volume or gesture, but with sheer presence. His tailored navy suit spoke of wealth that required no advertisement, his salt and pepper hair perfectly groomed, his gaze sharply focused. The entire bank fell silent. Tellers who had been counting cash froze mid-count. Customers who had been heading for the exit stepped back. Even the security guard, who had tormented Imani for hours, seemed to shrink. Dr. Montgomery's eyes had found Imani, still standing in her corner after nearly 4 hours. Something flickered across his face, a controlled flash of rage quickly tempered by concern for his daughter. He walked directly to her, his long strides eating the distance. "Are you all right?" he asked, his deep voice soft enough that only Imani could hear. "I'm okay, Dad," she responded, her exhaustion evident but her eyes clear. "I have something important to show you." She held up her notebook, filled with hours of careful documentation. Pride briefly overshadowed concern in Dr. Montgomery's expression before he turned to face Victoria Hargrove. When he spoke, his voice was perfectly modulated, not raised, not threatening, but carrying the unmistakable gravity of absolute authority. "I believe you've been holding my daughter against her will," he stated, each word precisely placed. By now, Talia Reeves and the other executives had entered the bank. The regional director's face was with mortification as she approached. "Dr. Montgomery," she began, her voice professionally controlled but strained. "I can't express how deeply sorry we are for this situation. I was only informed minutes ago, and I assure you that this is not reflective of our—" "Miss Reeves, I can explain," Victoria interrupted, stepping forward with desperate energy. "There was a protocol." Talia silenced Victoria with a single raised hand, not even turning to acknowledge her. Victoria's interruption died in her throat. Dr. Montgomery surveyed the assembled staff and remaining customers. "For those who don't know," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly throughout the space, "I recently acquired majority shares in Hancock Financial Group, and that makes me your highest boss." Everyone turned pale as employees exchanged shocked glances. "But I came here today, not as a bank owner, but as a father." His gaze returned to Victoria. "What I found is far worse than I could have imagined." Victoria physically stumbled backward, reaching for the counter to steady herself. The realization of what she had done, who she had done it to, hit her with physical force. "Oh my God," she whispered, barely audible as she turned completely pale. "I'm sorry, sir, I didn't know she was your daughter," she said fearfully. The boardroom, Dr. Montgomery stated, not a request, but a command. Now, within minutes, the bank's conference room had been transformed into an impromptu tribunal. Board members filed in silently, followed by Talia Reeves and other executives. Victoria was escorted in by security. The same guard who had enforced her cruelty, now ensuring her presence for accountability. The most shocking addition came when Harrison Wells was brought in through a side entrance, having been intercepted leaving a nearby restaurant by bank security. Against one wall, a large screen displayed security footage from throughout the day. The timestamp rolled forward, showing Imani's arrival, her polite interaction with the teller, and then nearly 4 hours of forced standing in the corner. The footage was damning enough, but when the cameras showed Victoria's differential treatment of customers based on race, several board members shook their heads in visible disgust. Imani stood before them, notebook in hand. Despite her exhaustion, her voice was clear and precise as she read from her detailed notes. I documented everything I saw while I was forced to stand there, she explained, flipping through pages filled with timestamps, descriptions, and direct quotes. At 1:52 p.m., I saw Miss Hargrove meeting with this man, Harrison Wells. She gestured toward the competitor, who sat stone-faced at the end of the table. She gave him a folder, clearly marked Confidential, Montgomery Acquisition, and discussed transferring high-value clients to his bank. Dr. Montgomery's expression remained impassive, but his eyes burned with controlled fury. Mr. Wells is an executive at Meridian Banking Group, our direct competitor, he informed the board, most of whom were already aware. The documents Ms. Hargrove provided contain confidential merger information, acquisition timelines, and client data. He paused, letting the weight of it settle. This is not just discrimination, this is corporate espionage. Victoria's phone was collected by security and connected to the presentation screen, displaying a series of text messages between her and Harrison Wells. Have list of high-value clients ready for transfer, read one from Wells. The evidence mounted relentlessly, each piece more damning than the last. Through it all, Victoria's attempts at explanation grew increasingly desperate and incoherent. When all evidence had been presented, Dr. Montgomery rose to address the room. His voice carried no theatrics, no excessive emotion, just the calm certainty of someone who understood the gravity of what had occurred. Banking is built on trust, he began. Each person who walks through those doors deserves respect, regardless of their age, race, or perceived wealth. He gestured toward the security footage still frozen on the screen. What happened today reveals a culture of discrimination that stops now. My daughter was treated this way because of how she looks. How many others have been? How many potential customers walked away feeling unwelcome or unworthy? How many dreams of homeownership or business creation were quietly crushed by biased treatment? Victoria, seeing her career and reputation disintegrating before her eyes, made one final attempt at self-preservation. I'm sorry, sir, it won't happen again. I was only following protocols, she insisted, her voice thin and desperate. Talia Reeves, who had remained silent throughout most of the proceedings, finally spoke. By holding a minor against her will for hours, her tone was ice. That's your understanding of protocol? By selling confidential information to competitors? Dr. Montgomery added. Is that also standard protocol at Hancock Trust? Victoria had no answer. As the meeting neared its conclusion, Dr. Montgomery gestured toward the door. One person in this branch showed true integrity today. Melody Pham was escorted in, looking nervous as all eyes turned to her. Miss Pham risked her job to help my daughter when no one else would. She chose basic human decency over blind obedience to corrupt leadership. Melody's eyes widened as Dr. Montgomery continued. That's the kind of character this institution should value. Talia Reeves stood, addressing Victorious directly. You are fired immediately, pending potential criminal charges. She nodded to security. Please escort them from the building and ensure they surrender all company property before leaving. The police entered to arrest them for corporate espionage. You will pay dearly for your deeds. As the cops led them toward the door, Victoria cast one final glance back at the room, at the authority she had wielded so cruelly just hours before, at the young girl whose treatment had exposed everything, and at the powerful man she had unwittingly crossed. Her face showed remorse and shock at the consequences finally catching up to her actions. The glass doors closed behind her, and for the first time in nearly 4 hours, Imani Montgomery was finally free to sit down. 3 months later, a lot had changed. The auditorium at Westridge Academy buzzed with energy as students from various schools across the district filled the seats. At the podium stood Imani Montgomery, no longer the humiliated girl forced to stand in a corner, but a poised young woman with purpose in her eyes. Financial knowledge isn't just for adults or the wealthy. Imani's confident voice carried through the room as she clicked to the next slide in her presentation. It's power, and everyone deserves access to that power, regardless of your age, background, or how much money your family has. Harrison Wells and Victoria had fared far worse. That morning's business news had shown him walking into the federal courthouse, a CNN headline scrolling beneath, "Former banking executive faces corporate espionage charges." The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit had expanded their investigation beyond the initial incident, uncovering what appeared to be a pattern of corporate theft and discriminatory practices spanning years. Wells' silver hair had lost its luster, his confident stride replaced by the cautious gait of a man facing serious federal charges. Back at the Hancock Trust flagship branch, the very location where Imani had once been humiliated, a transformation was underway. The conference room that had hosted Victoria's downfall now served as a training center, where Talia Reeves led a diverse group of employees through a new comprehensive program on equitable banking practices. In what had once been Victoria's office, Melody Pham sat behind a desk with a nameplate reading, "Customer Experience Manager." Through the glass walls, she could be seen mentoring 3 new employees, demonstrating with animated gestures how to provide respectful service to all customers. Later that afternoon, at an ice cream shop across from Westridge Academy, Imani sat across from her father, both enjoying elaborate sundaes after her successful presentation. "I keep thinking about that day," Imani said, stirring her ice cream thoughtfully. "I was so scared standing in that corner, but something told me to keep watching, keep writing everything down." Dr. Montgomery nodded, pride evident in his expression. "You turned a terrible experience into positive change. Your documentation didn't just address what happened to you, it exposed systemic problems that affected countless others." "I never expected to become the face of the teen financial literacy program," Imani laughed softly. "The best leaders emerge from the trenches, not from the sidelines," her father replied. "You experience the problem firsthand. That gives your solutions authenticity." The truth was both simpler and more profound than that single moment of justice when Victoria discovered who Imani was. The real lesson wasn't about the consequences of mistreating someone powerful. It was about recognizing that every person deserves to be treated with the same respect, regardless of who their father might be. If you enjoyed the story, click on the subscribe and like button and share to others to enjoy. See you in our next video.